All right. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wai Kit, and welcome to this session on Lumen's deep dive into DDoS attacks. Right. I think today cybersecurity and cyber attacks are being really evolving, and consumers are more aware of large-scale attacks, and organizations are under a lot of pressure to mitigate those risks. So as we go into the new norm of addressing this cyber risk, how do we deal with this kind of threats? And let us deep dive into DDoS and try to understand that a little bit more. So something about myself, I lead the connected security practice here in Asia Pac in Lumen. And prior to September 2020, Lumen was known as CenturyLink. We rebranded as and have a broader portfolio of technology services, including edge, cloud, security, communication, and we are a tier 1 network service provider. Right, so we do have the largest, most deeply peered IP networks in the world. In fact, our core backbone is large enough to run around the world 18 times. Right, so because we run such a huge deeply peered IP networks, we leverage on it to carry out threat research. And we have an threat research and operations arm called Black Lotus Labs. One of the mission of Black Lotus Labs is to leverage on global network visibility that we have to help both ourselves protect our networks, as well as protect our customers and keep the internet clean. Right, so we uncover a lot of techniques. We track and monitor threats and C2s, as well as botnets out there. And we use the information and knowledge we detect to have countermeasures so that we can keep the internet safe for everyone. We see a lot of what happens on the internet. When we pair that with our deep expertise around cyber threat intelligence, with what our SOC is delivering as security services, we have insights to help customers evade traditional threat detection and major crimeware network at an internet scale. So today I'm going to bring you through a journey around what we have seen out there and how are we tracking those threats, and what's the significance does those threats have on you as an organization or business, right? So cyber criminals have always leveraged on botnets, and two of the most prevalent IoT botnets for DDoS is the GAFGate as well as Mirai. And botnets are basically a network of hijacked devices. You can call it zombies, you can call it slaves, but they're basically devices that are used to launch a campaign or launch an attack. And they aren't really that dangerous until they receive a command. And typically, that's where command and controls, or otherwise known as C2s, drive the botnets to launch those attacks. And usually those attacks leverage on or take advantage on vulnerabilities that might exist on a particular business or organization's network. So the role of Black Lotus Labs team is to find those C2s, track them, disrupt them, so that they can't issue any more commands or grow their army of botnets. So over the last quarter in Q2, we have observed a few significant findings. One, even though the GAFGate and Mirai botnets has been around for years, they are still affecting attack trends up to this day. We saw the GAFGate C2s increase 12%, and the Mirai C2s increase 40%. There's been a longer lifespan on these C2s, so that means they're sticking around for much longer, nearly a month each, and there's more of them, right? So it's important to know that this mechanism that your adversaries or bad actors use to launch attacks. And today we are seeing there's over 17,000 unique victims per family, right? Sorry, combined across both families. So it's something that is prevalent, is increasing, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So if we look at where are these C2s, they come across different countries globally. It's not specific to a specific region. However, it's important to note, just because the C2s might be located somewhere in a specific country, it doesn't mean that that's where your bad actors are. So sometimes we see cyber criminals trying to hide their location, their leverage on other infrastructure. It's not the country that they might reside in, but it's somewhere else. They're spinning up and shutting down infrastructure just to be promiscuous, right? So what we do is we look at a lot of these breakdowns today, and we try to understand how is it changing over time? What are the methodology? How does that impact the number of attacks and the volume of attacks that's going out to businesses and organizations? The interesting part of it is that we saw a 10% decrease in overall bots tracked in Q2, but the top 3 hosting countries for botnets have seen drastic increases. For instance, Brazil, over 173% increase quarter to quarter in terms of botnets, and Mexico, 300% increase quarter to quarter, and then India as well. New entrants as countries like Russia, Argentina are added into that list. And so it's shifting about globally because the bad actors are launching different campaigns, spinning up or down infrastructure, covering their tracks, right? The way that the Black Lotus Labs keep our customers safe is if we identify C2s, especially on our network, we will do our best to take them down, disrupt them, right? So let me now go to what we have observed and mitigated in terms of DDoS attacks in Q2. So our DDoS mitigation service, actually, we have 2 types. One is always on, and the other one is on demand, where majority of our customers are. Always on means the data is always routed through our scrubbers, and on demand is we turn it on when there's a threat detected, right? So throughout 2021, we've seen DDoS attacks increase quarter to quarter. The number of sites attack increased by 10%, and initial analysis of Q3 shows that there were a lot more attacks over the summer of this year, right? The duration is interesting. It seems that the attacks are a bit shorter, under 30 minutes, but when they are longer, they tend to be significant campaigns with durations that extends over multiple days. So there are 2 extremes of it. One of the representative or reason behind that could be the emergence of ransom DDoS, where bad actors would attempt to simulate a short attack just to show that they can do it, and then when they are not receiving the ransom, they continue attacking until it is paid up, right? So a lot of our mitigation today that we have been doing about 70% of it are for on-demand mitigation. We're also seeing that a lot of the emergency turn-up of DDoS mitigation services are basically in response to ransom DDoS threat. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. That's an interesting phenomenon that we are observing in the industry now. So just because you don't experience the largest attack doesn't mean that your business or your organization won't be disrupted. Well, a 1 gig attack can easily take you down without making headlines, right? So there's usually two ways to measure volumetric DDoS attacks. And these two metrics or ways to measure it is one, by bandwidth. It's the amount or it's basically disrupting the service by flooding a circuit or an application, right? So the second metric is by packet rate. So they consume resources on network elements, whether it's a router, an appliance, and it's measured by how many millions of packets per second. The largest size of attack jumped drastically for both types of volumetric attacks, 56% quarter to quarter for bandwidth attacks, and almost, I think, more than 400% for packet rate. So all these are contributed by probably a lot of those less experienced actors that have entered the scene, the availability of open source code for DDoS attacks, and even DDoS for RAN becoming rampant and easily available means that you don't need a lot of experience or skills to launch a DDoS attack these days. So that's changing the landscape as we know it, right? In terms of vertical, telecommunications lead the list. Transportation is a new one that's added to the list. And the interesting part about it is the largest attack we've seen is actually experienced by a telecom, right? And sometimes, while they are the industry, they are not necessarily the target. They could be their end customers, especially like hosting, or their customers who are the specific targets of those attacks. So this, I mentioned about ransomware and ransom DDoS. So everybody knows about ransomware, and we've seen news every day on incidents, victims of ransomware. But there are two key differences between a ransomware and a ransom DDoS. A ransomware's primary means of attack is to encrypt an organization's systems and data, and hackers will provide the means to decrypt it, the key, when or after a ransom is paid. But a ransom DDoS is the other way around. So I sent you a letter or email, a message that threatens you that unless you pay me a ransom, I'm going to launch a DDoS attack that will impact your business. And this is a real example of a message that one of our customers received in Q2. Of course, the identity, the Bitcoin address has been redacted, but basically they are extorting that customer to say, if you don't pay me 2 Bitcoins, I'm going to launch an attack that will cripple your network, right? And once I start that attack, if you want me to stop, you gotta that ransom increase to 4 Bitcoins. And that's something that is interesting because it's an unusual tactic, but it's a new behavior that began in the fall of 2020 and has continued since. So sometimes the bad actors, in order to reinforce their threat, they almost always send an immediate or small test attack just to prove that they have the means to do it. as well as the desire, the motivation to do that, right? So if you take a look at what is the current rate for Bitcoin today, about 47,000. By 2 Bitcoins, the fee that the ransom that they are demanding is 95K, right? So sometimes at the end of the day, it's probably a lot wiser to engage a DDoS mitigation service than to pay cyber criminals, right? So just to highlight, ransom DDoS is becoming a norm, and it's something that's financially motivated. In fact, most cyber criminals are financially motivated, right? So how do you know if you're under a DDoS attack? Usually understanding your network traffic, baseline, the profile, and when you monitor that network traffic and activities, unexpected spikes that deviate from those baselines gives you telltale signs of suspicious activities. So watch out for the number of requests sent to your protected IP address space. Set a threshold. Alert yourself when you receive more than that set of requests in each period. So a lot of these are actually indicators that you could probably be under a DDoS attack. An application being sluggish or unresponsive or slow. But the key, the very important key, is to be prepared. It's not really a matter of if, but when, right? Being prepared is the secret sauce of keeping your business and your digital online services uninterrupted. Stop threats before they become attacks. So Lumen has that global scale, footprint, visibility, as well as the threat intelligence to help our customers of all sizes with their DDoS needs. We have one of the largest DDoS mitigation deployment around the world. And that fit all resources, budget, and different objectives. So what's next? Few key points. Cybercrime is not going away anytime soon. The attack sophistication, whether it's a DDoS, a ransomware, whether it's a compromised network, is going to continue to ramp up. And with businesses digitally transforming themselves, relying more on digital online buying experiences to generate revenue, they become targets, easy targets for attackers to look at disrupting that revenue stream and gaining or monetizing from that opportunity. So it's very appealing for attackers to especially those well-funded criminal organizations. So what do you need to do? Having a high fidelity threat intelligence to stop threats before they become active attacks. And if we can automate these defenses, relying on the scrubber infrastructure that we have to mitigate those threats, then I think that's something that will help prepare you for the unforeseen. So the other thing is pushing defense capabilities closer to the applications. The edge helps increase performance, integration with your edge defenses with large scale mitigation capability, right? So that's what I wanted to share in terms of our DDoS insights. And if you're looking for the full Lumen quarterly DDoS report, go to our website, lumen.com. On our DDoS webpage, you'll find it. And by mid-November, we should have the Q3 report out, published by then. So do look out for future reports as well. All right. Thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, happy to take those. Okay. By the way, just end note, as I mentioned earlier, our mission statement is to see more, stop more. While it's founded through our threat research Black Lotus Labs, seeing more threats out there. See more is also representative of identifying vulnerabilities, gaps in security controls, weaknesses across your environment, and monitoring for any indicators of compromise or attacks. Okay. If there are no questions, thank you very much for your time.